She fights evil by moonlight, never runs from a real fight, and also has some really cool Sailor Moon gifts themed after her.
This holiday season, if you're in need of a present for the Sailor Moon fan in your life, then you should check out fun.com.
Fun.com carries all of the great gift ideas, including collectible Funko Pop Sailor Moon figures, novelty mugs, and even some really cute anime-themed apparel, like the Sailor Moon Fair Isle Ugly Christmas sweater, which we both love and have.
Fun.com's awesome selection of merch doesn't stop at Sailor Moon. They also have the best selection of gifts, clothing, and toys for other brands like Star Wars, Disney, Harry Potter, Marvel, DC, and more.
And if you use the link in our show notes, you can get 15% off of your order. So head over to fun.com.
Did You Have To is a proud member of the But Why Though podcast community.
Welcome back to Did You Have To, the podcast where two bad bitches talk about anime. And here are your hosts, Kate and Nisha. Yeah! Nisha's quirk, stress ball. By internalizing her stress about the world being in chaos and crime, she converts that stress into a superpower, becoming a badass. Kate's quirk, waifu warrior. By just watching her favorite shows, she can manifest real or fictional characters into the real thing. They come to life and fight by her side. Not every character does it, though. She has to find the individual really hot. Yeah!
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Did You Have To? I'm Kate.
And I'm Nisha.
And we're here with Aisha, also known as Mama Loves Manga.
Hey, thank y'all so much for having me. I'm super excited.
And if you all don't know her work, it's extensive, it's awesome. It includes the Yaoi shelf, the Yuri cast, and a whole bunch of thirsty hentai tweets that make me feel so seen.
Love it.
But today, if you haven't guessed by the title that you clicked, it's hentai and it's art. We're going to be talking about the wonderful world of hentai. We're going to follow suit to our Yaoi episode a little bit and have this be a 101. So if you don't know what hentai is, we're going to tell you what it is. But this is also where I say, please put the kiddos up because, yeah, we're going to talk about porn, guys. That's what's going to happen.
Yep.
So to start things off, I'm going to get real formal and just do the Wikipedia definition of the terminology, which is hentai is a kanji compound of hen, which means change, weird, or strange, and tai, which is appearance or condition. It also means perversion or immorality, especially when used as an adjective. Within the context we're going to be talking about it, though, it is specifically anime and manga pornography. And it's not technically a genre of media. It's more of just a thing something is. Kind of how like anime is not a genre. It's a medium, right, but not a genre. I don't know if that makes sense to people.
I think it does.
It does.
But yeah, so it'll also get used as a descriptor for things. So according to Wikipedia, the example they used, very interested that Wikipedia used this example. For example, outside of Japan, a work of animation depicting lesbian sex might be described as Yuri hentai, but in Japan it would just be Yuri, which I think is really interesting. And it's going to lead me to the question that I want to ask, because we did our Yaoi episode. I love me some Yaoi, and we have a Yuri and Yaoi expert on the podcast today. Why is there a difference? Why is there, do any of y'all have any ideas as to why there's a difference between like Yuri, like why Yuri and Yaoi aren't technically hentai when we think about it?
I don't have any like concrete, evidence, but just from my personal experience and opinion, it seems like hentai in general, like what we typically consider hentai, tends to be very straight leaning. Like it has a very specific audience that it caters to, that Yuri and Yaoi don't typically cater to. So I kind of wonder if it's just like, I almost wonder if it's just not seen in the same way because, let's just face it, because men aren't necessarily consuming it in the way that they are consuming hentai. But I don't know if that's actually true. That's just kind of the vibe that I get, because really, if you're reading like explicit yaoi or explicit yuri, especially if it's uncensored, to me that's still hentai because it's still pornography. But a lot of people, like you said, they don't consider it that. And it could also be maybe storytelling, because to be fair, a lot of like things that are categorized as hentai don't really focus on story that often. Some do, but most of them are very much just about the sex. And yuri and yaoi, while there are some that are mostly about the sex, a lot of them do have like an actual story and plot and all that stuff. So that could also be part of it. But those are just kind of my assumptions, you know, so don't quote me.
Nisha, what about you?
I had just always thought of like, for the way I differentiate it. So like same thing. I always wonder like, why isn't it all one thing? But like when I think about hentai, it always feels more graphic and less plot to me, at least the ones I have consumed, which, you know, being adults here on this podcast and we're in this episode. So, but like when I think about it also, since y'all, I feel like people have heard of our podcast, our bonus Patreon podcast, Manga Trash. Y'all know me and Kate read some hentai. So, but even then I feel like there's a difference because Blue Flag, no, I don't want to use Blue Flag because that's Shonen Ai and that's not yaoi. But like there's yaoi series like Given, which to my point, that I don't think of as graphic.
So that's where we get into like the weird like boys love shonen ai yaoi. What is what description?
Right. But it's like I can definitely think of like, you know what? There's hentai that I've read, but I will not like easily recommend them to people. But there's yaoi that I've read where I'm like, yeah, go read it. And it's because of like, I think of, before asking somebody, and that's like, hentai is much more graphic and like much more detailed, even though some stuff might be blurred out. But with yuri and yaoi, I feel like just as the general genre, I don't think they go like it's not heavy on the smut. If I put it that, if we want to put it that way, like it doesn't lean heavy on smut, but it might just like teeter. And then there's stuff that's just for the story.
So question, is there a difference between like josei smut and hentai then too? Like, does that get the same delineation? Because if you think of something like Fire in His Fingertips or like My Boss is an XL, something like that is like,
well, and
those are hentai.
I think that Fire in His Fingertips has actually been marketed as hentai for women. At least I've heard that because like actually me and like my Thirsty Thursday live stream crew, like we talked about Fire in His Fingertips, and that was one thing that we were pretty excited about because it was being marketed as hentai for women, which kind of annoys me because hentai really is for all genders. But that's hentai for women because it is pretty explicit, but it's like explicit with a story, and so it just makes me go back to like, maybe it is just like a story thing because like you said, Nisha, like yaoi and yuri tend to more likely have an actual plot. Like there's actual, it's about, it tends to be more about like romance in a lot of ways, like the actual romantic couple rather than just sex, which I'm literally looking at my stack of hentai physical books, and very few of these stories actually focus on the relationship. It's the sex, like 95%.
Well, it's also making me think too, because like I'm going through like my yaoi Rolodex in my head of like the things I have on my shelf, but also the things that I've read. And honestly, like the only one that I could see even being close to like hentai as we kind of, the funny thing is I don't even know names of hentai because I've just watched it without like the names necessarily. And I read josei smut, or it's categorized as josei smut, but now like I guess that is just hentai. But like
it is. It's just the
I think of like
subgenre
Cast
it.
Heaven. Like Cast Heaven is like the only thing that could potentially, I think, is like that's just sex.
Right.
A lot. Very problematic, as everybody should know here. That's what I like it, because that's just, I don't know, guys. I have problems. But
I will say that, like, I think a lot of like Scarlett Barrico's work, like one of my favorites, one of my guilty pleasures is Jackass, and there are some pretty explicit scenes, mostly toward the end. Like, it doesn't get too explicit throughout the main part of the story, but toward the end there's like an on the high school roof scene that you get, and it's pretty detailed, but I still don't know that I would consider it hentai, because it's so like plot driven and like like it just, there is a story to it. So
because even if I think of something like because like one of my favorite yaoi is Twittering Birds, which has a lot of sex, a lot, like from beginning to end. But it also has an extensive like mafia power struggle, like, and when I think of hentai, I'm just like, ooh, weird sex sometimes. And I use the word weird because, like, it's not romantic sex a lot of the time. It is just like, what are things we can do with these anime characters that we can't do with actual humans?
Literally, like, Sign is a great example, because when you say weird, like, they accidentally end up having sex. We're like, accidentally as in like,
I forgot about Sign.
Yeah,
did you fall on the dick?
And I love it, but I'm
and so Sign is a manhwa on Lezen. One, it's so good, but two, they kind of accidentally have sex. It's weird.
Just accidentally end up in a relationship.
But that one, to its credit, has a really extensive plot about PTSD and trauma and like and disability, and like I wrapping this back around, when we think of hentai and you kind of look for the origins, like the origins of hentai, at least according to this Kotaku article, which was written by a white person, so please don't blame me if it's wrong. I'm using the sources I have. Just it goes back to I believe it's to the old wood carvings of pornographic material, and then that then translates to like the current hentai, pornographic market. And I remember listening to Yodoya Travis's Anime in America, and they did this really extensive dive into hentai. And one of the reasons, if somebody says hentai, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
For me, I don't know why, but boobs. I don't know.
Boobs.
Yeah,
Nisha?
I think it's doujinshi.
God damn it.
Oh.
Okay. I was hoping somebody else would say tentacles, so I didn't have to.
Oh, no. If you mean in general, yes.
Yes.
Oh, my bad. I was thinking about for me.
Thanks.
Right. I was like, well, the things that I like boobs. So okay.
Yeah, no, yes. Tentacles is the first thing everyone
I do think it's safe to say that people who don't read this and have their own preferences, like everybody on this podcast, would just say tentacle.
Yeah, I mean, actually, tentacle porn is how I kind of was introduced to hentai way back in like 2004, 2005. Yeah, when I first stumbled across like hentai videos online, definitely tentacles. So yeah, okay, I can see that.
And they were explaining in that podcast how the reason tentacles started was because you couldn't draw penises. But you could draw tentacles. And so essentially they would use tentacles as a stand-in, and that's kind of like maintained. So there's a lot of toy usage in hentai. Because like that's something you can show. And then one of the other things that it pointed out is there is also censorship in Japan where you can't show certain parts of the body, and so you blur it out. And when it came to the United States, you ended up with Americans being like, but I want to see the P and the V. Like, why can't I see it?
Right.
And that led to the hentai publishers pushing to have unedited pieces of the work. And so you would have people, you would have either there were the originals that were uncensored that would then come, or you would have people going in and editing it. And from a fan perspective, again, this podcast encourages you to buy people's work. But in the scan community, there are people with the title Dick Redrawer because they will go in and edit raws to draw in the parts of the body that were censored. And so what I find really fascinating in is like, I don't think that I will ever understand hentai in the Japanese context because I'm so like, because of where I live, because of how I've consumed hentai, and because like really the only company on a prolific standpoint is Faku, who's publishing hentai at a really extensive rate, both video and manga as well. And then when you look at Faku's trajectory in business, it's very similar to Crunchyroll, and they did it all illegally. And then they started working with people, and now it's all the up and up. So when we think about like how Americans consume hentai, or like how we consume hentai, I know you mentioned how you first came into it. Like what were some of the first ways that y'all were introduced to hentai, and like do you seek it out now? I'm sure everybody can guess. They will be on the edge of their seat. Yes, we do.
Absolutely. So I guess I feel bad. I keep going first. Like, why do I keep answering?
You're the guest.
Okay. So I specifically remember like I was in college. It was my freshman year, and I didn't grow up like I didn't have a computer when I was like living at home. But as soon as I got into into college and I made friends, actually, my husband now, we were friends and dating then, and I would like get on his computer and like just look up random stuff, and I came across hentai. I came across tentacle porn, and I was like, what is this? And I actually, this would have been this would have been 2004, 2005. So I want to say that I just kind of like would just type it in the browser, and then whatever popped up. Faku was part of that back then, but everything was illegal.
Yeah.
Like everything was like, you had to, like download. It was like very, very sketch. But I can't quite remember exactly what site, because there's like random stuff. And I actually, for the longest time, my only like resources were illegal sites, and like I would just search hentai videos, and then whatever site popped up that had stuff that I liked. Like there was one site that I used to go to called wetpussygames.com. That still exists.
Straight to the point.
That up, because I used to go to that because they had like sex games, but also hentai, and like totally like the hentai was totally illegal. You could tell it was totally illegal, but I wasn't thinking about that back then. And it wasn't until pretty recently, like maybe in the past couple of years, that I came across like Faku in its like the way it is now, and was like, oh wait, I can get this stuff legally, like legitimately. And so from there, I mostly consume my hentai through Faku. And I do have like a relationship with a doujin publisher. And they also put out some like hentai doujin, like Iridori Comics. Yeah. And so, and they're always like, hey, if you want something, tell me and I'll give it to you. Okay. But like there's some hentai doujin that I also like, but it's mostly through Faku anymore. And I mostly consume it through like books, through the manga, rather than video. I think TBH video, sometimes there's too much plot, and I'm just like, I don't want to have to sit through all of the actual plot. So it's easier when I'm reading to just like flip to, the good parts.
I I feel so seen because I am reading a yaoi right now where like they switched the characters, and so now I'm having to go through the introduction again. And it's like, no. There was next, please. I will say for me, I accidentally stumbled on to hentai when I was an impressionable youth because I looked up Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon at the same time.
Okay. No.
Yeah.
Oh
So
my
I got that. Which, if you don't know, there are quite a few hentai out there where it is Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon. So young impressionable Kate saw those stills and then clicked videos, and that's what opened the door.
Goku, Kamehameha,
That's maybe why I have an unhealthy love of Vegeta. I don't know.
Oh gosh.
But so that was how it started. And then I mean I've watched, I don't think I've ever watched like full hentai series or anything like that. Like it was always like, oh cool, porn. Watch a clip.
Yeah.
But what I did do is I played a lot. I don't remember it was hentai flash games dot something.
I know
And
that.
I would play the eroge, and if you don't know what eroge is, it's a portmanteau for erotic game, and so it's an entire genre of gaming in Japan where it's a lot of visual novels. It's a lot, and it's all just porn. You're playing through porn, like, and it's like it's an entire one. I feel like the US needs to have this. It's really cool. Yeah. So that was actually how I consumed hentai for the longest time, was just playing through eroge. Again, illegally through hentai flash games, whatever. And that was it. And now I don't do that anymore because I'm not a teenager, although it would be interesting to play one in the current gen of what things are and not a flash game.
Right.
But now I just read it. I think I read it. I know I had a Faku subscription for a while. I'm not gonna lie. I there wasn't enough plot. I feel like I need at least a little bit of plot to get pulled in to justify staying up to read like 60 chapters or something. But then again, a lot of the stuff on Faku isn't even multiple chapters. It's one shots. And I'm like, but I want to get invested in the sex. And so I just read. Actually, I have found myself relying on manhwa sites a lot more. So like Leshin, Tappy Toon, Tapas. It's not like exclusively manhwa, but it's which is if you're not familiar with manhwa, manhwa is Korean manga. Which I don't know why it's Korean. I've never looked it up, but like it's like it has to do with like the styling and stuff like that. But anyway,
and just the art. I used to study Korean and like so but
yay.
Like a
I mean, we also had a conversation about Taemin and Kai, and
right? Like so I'm kind of a Korea
boo. I am too, though. It's fine. But yeah, so that's where I am in my hentai journey. I was actually really let down because when I got my Faku subscription, I went to their BL section and I was just like, there's like nothing here, yo. Like, and I think they own Kuma, right? That's there's like nothing there.
Yeah, I already have everything that they've put out. So
Nisha, where are you on this chaotic scale?
Okay, so y'all remember a thing called LimeWire?
Yes.
Okay, so I almost broke the family computer because I was trying to find the new Inuyasha movie that had came out that year because I was putting it on my PSP and I was just like, I had found the other ones with no problem, so I thought I could find it. What I did find was Inuyasha no Jinshi movie. Like somebody illustrated a whole ass movie. It was like looking back on it, I know it was terrible, like terribly. Not, I mean, someone put their heart and sweat into it, but it was terribly made. Oh.
I said heart and sweat and not heart and soul. I feel
You know they were sweating.
Their soul was in it. It's not their soul. It was just heart. It was a love for it, and they made it. So then that sparked my interest, and I immediately deleted everything from the computer. But because you had a PSP, and if you knew how to like, you know, hack it and everything, you clear shit. I was able to like search for hentai on there. So I would literally be
smart
like,
one. You
I knew what to do and how to do it and not get caught. So
I got hentai searches blamed on my brother one time, and I didn't say a word. My brother is also 9 years older than me, so it was like before I was leaving. Or like 9 years younger than me, not older, younger. So it was right when I was leaving the house. So he was hitting right in his like 12-year-old stage. And my mom was like, yeah, I hope nobody in my family listens to this. But
I hope no one either. Because like, since you talked about getting caught, that's why I was so scared about getting caught. Because I come from a very Christian Black household. And as soon as they would have seen the man with the dog ears and the tail, it would have been like, who brought this demon into the house?
Right. I mean,
so I could not risk getting caught. So yeah, no.
Right.
So from there, like it took me down a rabbit hole because, you know, I was able to search for things on my PSP and I was able to find stuff. And I eventually, like most people, because broke and have no money. So scanned sites, learned about what Josei was, learned that I was a Josei slut. That was my jam. But yeah, and I feel like that's kind of where I was at until like I realized like, oh, there are legal means that don't risk a virus. And I can go and explore this further. But I do feel like for me, I prefer doujinshi. Just because it's just like sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't know these people and their motivations. So I need characters. And I need to know their motivations. But then I now since like doing this podcast with Kate and like other things, I feel like we recommend things back with each other. So it's like now I'm like, oh, this is a good yaoi.
I have forced her to read so much yaoi.
I mean,
like, not forced, but I'm like, hey, here's a giant man and a smaller man. This is the dynamic you like.
You know my brand because I love a tall and a small. I love it because that is why I'm reading Titan's Bride. But and it's such trash. But Mom, I hope you never.
That's the equality we're asking for: a tall and a small, no gender specifics.
Right? It doesn't even really. Well, because there is that other one I like too, with the two girls and their friends, and like she's super tall and a tomboy, and then she's just small and dainty. I love it so much. But and like so like I think that's where I'm at now with it. Just I look for doujinshi. I have. Because we did manga trash, I learned that Fire in His Fingertips and Bosses in Excel had anime. And also because of Titan's Bride had anime. So those have really, there's been other ones by chance, but I think I prefer reading it first. And if it's good enough to, I guess, where it gets to anime, I will watch it. And I guess technically, okay, so you talking about your games, Kate, reminded me that Fate Stay Night is literally just, it started off as say it again, Eroge. That's all it was before the anime series. So it's fascinating because I also did play some of those because I was like, free anime game online. Blah, blah, blah. And I found
this is why I don't believe a single weeb who says, "Oh, I don't watch hentai." Yes, you do, or you have. I know your ass has stumbled upon that.
And I think it goes back to the whole tentacle thing because, like, I'm like, no, I don't watch tentacle porn. But, like, I feel like that's what most people will say. Like, I don't watch hentai. I don't watch that tentacle shit. And I'm like, you know that it's, like, not just tentacle monsters.
Right? Although I liked right. I was a fan. But I also, if you'll see my Twitter, I frequently talk about my love of interspecies hentai. I love monsters and aliens. I love it. I
see why you and Kay get along well.
There's a reason. The reason I am reading Kaiju number 8 is not for the plot. That's all I will say.
I'm just like, give me that monster dick. Like, let me just, I just want to see it. I just want to look at it, just a peek.
I always tend towards like, oh, and see, this is why we had like emotions brought up with us when we reviewed Beastars, because I'm like, why is this panda hot? Like, I get shamed regularly by my co-host from the Yaoi Shelf because I am a deviant furry, and she's always like, he's in high school. Legoshi's in high school. I'm like, Legoshi's a wolf. If he's in high school,
The rules are not the same.
Like, you can still get it.
trying to justify.
I will justify it. I will fight everyone else about like my morals about like not sexualizing minors, but tell me that I can't thirst over Legoshi and I will fight.
Well, no, that's what I mean. Like them trying to justify it by saying he's in high school. I'm like, he's a wolf. He's technically grown up because he's 17 in wolf years. So
right, he's probably
like,
dead.
If Inuyasha and Kagome can be together, your argument is weak.
It's like, leave me alone. I would love to see Beastars Dojin though.
I want
it's out there.
Also, I know, and I tweeted it or I put it on Instagram, and somebody was like, because I was like, Beastars is a yaoi, and no one can tell me otherwise. Like, but the author made Haru, and like, I was like, I don't give a hell. Fuck what the author said.
Right.
There was too much tension in some of them scenes. Too much tension in some of those scenes.
Spoiler for Beastars, jump 30 seconds forward. But you don't let a man eat your leg if you don't love him. That's all I'm like. Come on now.
I'm dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
The facts are there.
Oh god.
That's just yaoi lyrics, not yaoi. Yeah, yaoi logic right there.
It really is. Honestly.
Actually, hentai logic, because that stuff happens to Earl Guy. Like, oh no, the only way to give you this magical power is transfer it through my dick.
That is literally hentai yaoi. That's everything. I am reading. So this is somehow becoming the episode. I will ask a real question after this, but first I want to say that there is a manhwa on Leshin called The Fate something or other. It's really pretty art. I'll link it in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
But like there are goblins and reapers, and then there's humans and spirits, and goblins survive off of yang energy, which is what humans have. And so in order to stay alive and protect the human that he's protecting, he has to suck his dick. Semen has the most amount of yang energy. And it is so hilarious to read. And in my head, I'm like, yo, mangaka, you could have just said they wanted to fuck. That's all you had to do.
I just try not to scream because I feel like I would have really made somebody mad or jerk a car. Wow.
Anyway, on the side note, we are 3 women of color talking about hentai, talking about sexy anime, and I have to ask, how do you all feel about the stereotypes behind people who watch hentai and like hentai in general? Because it is extremely stigmatized overall. I mean, to the point that anytime there is a like even cleavage on my screen in anime, my husband's like, why are you watching hentai? I was like, it's not hentai, it's just Food Wars. Right. But you know, Food Wars.
Yes. Right. Yes. It's interesting because I feel like, so my audience in general is very accepting of my love of hentai, surprisingly. I think a lot of it is because in the beginning, not purposefully, but I did kind of present a more wholesome vibe at the very beginning. I don't know why, like it just was that way. And so then when I started talking, like revealing more and started talking about hentai, I think people were more so like, oh, wow, that's really cool, rather than, oh, wow, that's gross. And I think it has a lot to do with me being older than the general fandom, like age range. Also a mom, because people are like, whoa, you're a mom and you like hentai? That's cool. Like, you know, like I have had people say, I wish you were my mom, which in a lot of ways sounds creepy now that I think about it. But like I have not personally dealt with like negativity about it online, but I will say that in real life, like in my daily life, I don't like readily volunteer that information because I know there is there is so much stigma. And I know that there is this like, just in general for a woman to be sexual at all. And I, again, live in Oklahoma in a very conservative area, that I just could not like be super open about it in like real life, just because, like people would associate that with like devil stuff. I don't know, like you're a heathen, you're like a terrible person, you're disgusting, you know, whatever. But I do think, honestly, because I'm a woman, I do think that people in general, like online, are more accepting. I think if I were a man, especially of like the neck beard variety, I think that I would get a lot less support. I mean, I actually, you know, I'm pretty active in the manga tube space, and I know there are some male manga tubers who may or may not fit into the neck beard stereotype, who also talk about hentai, and they don't get the same the positive response. Like most of their viewers are other neck beardy types, and they're not getting like praised for it, and people kind of see them as a little more creepy when we're like talking about the same stuff. I definitely think that me being a woman kind of gives me a like the leeway, I guess, to be more like, oh, look at this, because people aren't I guess people don't feel threatened, like they don't feel like I'm going to be creepy toward them, you know? So I haven't really experienced anything like negative. No one's been like, ew, you must be, I don't know, like some kind of creepy person. Okay, I'm sorry. Can y'all hear my kid?
No.
You can't? Okay, just making sure. I can hear him. And I was just like, okay, good. But yeah, no, I haven't really experienced anything too negative yet. So that's good.
I think for me, like very much the same in that. So I never really talked about any of it. It got a little bit more because like I started getting more thirsty on my timeline when I started this podcast with Nisha, because having Nisha helped me see another woman who was like, yeah, we like hot things. That's fine. Because like I grew up in a very Catholic household, a very Mexican household, where like bodily autonomy for a woman is not a thing. You have sex to have children. That's it. You don't talk about anything. I remember my cousin jokingly invited me and my mother to a one of those like sex toy parties, or like one of those like pretty much a pyramid scheme where somebody like gets a subscription to something. One of those things. And they were playing a game and they said M, and it came to me, and I said masturbation really quick because that was the first thing that came to my mind. My mom was like, ¿Cómo? And I was like, really? And so it was like dramatic novella style too. And it was one of those things where like I've had to unlearn the fact that women can't enjoy sex, or the women shouldn't enjoy sex, that women shouldn't be allowed to embrace those parts. And it's weird because I do think that there's like this weird thing culturally where I only started talking about yaoi and smut on my time, like really when COVID hit, and I was just reading a lot of it, but also after I made sure to block my mother on Twitter and like all these other things, because I was like, I don't really want them seeing that. And I also worry what people within my culture will think. But I've had so many people reach out to me. Like, I think when Fleets first happened, I was like, so should I just use this to do Yowie Rex? It will disappear. And I had like people like respond to them. Yes. Can you give me some? Like all these things. And I was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And it's turned into something where like in the same way that with you, Aisha, like there is a positivity and respect. And like I've had people tell me like it's so cool that your husband lets you talk about that. So I was like, well, one, it's not a let. Two, this is kind of weird. But three, let's talk about why you think it's really interesting that a husband would let a wife talk about these things.
Right.
And it is something where like it's weird because like I get respect for owning my sexuality, but my husband somehow gets respect because he allows me to.
Right.
Which is like a really like weird, gross thing that happens.
That comment smells.
But yeah, but it comes from other women. And it's weird
terrible.
because I'm like, this is like, it's just a very weird thing. All that being said, I will say I have personally definitely been quote unquote weirded out by like dudes who are furries or like because I bring those negative stereotypes and those stigmas with me. Like I've been at anime cons and like I don't like being next to the dude in the hentai jumpsuit because I'm just like my brain is like, oh no, that should be a warning. And hearing you kind of like say it and contextualize it that way, Aisha, I'm kind of like, oh, we're doing the same thing. This is I need to unpack this here. So yeah, that's kind of my stuff.
So I guess for me, I like what both of y'all said because I kind of feel very much in the middle because like, yeah, me and Kate being friends, and I will say friends first, and then like starting this podcast and everything, that has kind of helped me a lot because like through Kate and then like through other people on my timeline, it's like you meet more sex positive women. And you kind of like have this, you have this community where it's like, it almost clicks. And like, cause I very similarly grew up in a Black Christian household whose father is a pastor and everything. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff where like, I think maybe like, I always felt like sex I was just like, this feels unfair. So am I supposed to get any pleasure from this? Or I'm like, I was that kid in Sunday school who's just like, I'm only supposed to do it to have babies, like not for fun and like not. So it's like, I've always like struggled with that identity, like as a Christian, as a Black Christian woman. And then as like, I feel I am a sex positive person because you can have pleasure from sex and and it should be enjoyable. And you should not have shame in the things that bring you pleasure or that you enjoy or like, whatever preferences you have along with that. But when it comes to like hentai, I think it's just because it's taken me a while to unpack it and not immediately think of tentacles and like, because I think everyone always thinks it's like child pornography. I mean, they think of tentacles and child pornography.
Right.
And like, for me, that was my first thought about it too. Like, it's okay when you did talk about it. I think everyone thinks of tentacles, but I also think a lot of people think of this like it's this perverse thing, and it's wrong because it sexualizes women and it sexualizes children. Which I'm not going to act like that doesn't exist, but there is a big hard red line between like that and the other things because like I don't consume it. I don't like anything that looks like a child and anything that I consume in that way. So it's like at first I had to like unpack things that way. Yeah. But so like when it comes to like when we talk about identities, I do feel like as, you know, women and then also specifically as like Black and brown women, we probably find ourselves in more spaces where like there's other people like us and who are like supportive of us on one end, but then there's that other side of it where like I'll have dudes dudes who are like fans of anime and like they'll look at me weird if I say like I've watched or I've taken part of hentai, and I'm like everybody watches porn, and it's not that's the reason why I don't easily bring that up. I don't bring that up at all. If somebody is asking me, I've dated men who love anime as much as me, and they never knew I liked hentai because I'm just like, I don't know if you'll judge me. I don't know if you'll shun me. I just, cause like from the interactions I've seen online and from and when I do thirst, thankfully, most of the people I thirst with online and everything is just like, they're very welcoming because that's my
Mhm.
community that I've built. But
Yeah.
there always be somebody that come in like, y'all just some thoughts for some 2D men. I'm like, and your ass likes Orihime. Shut up.
I love that.
Name me your top 5 female characters and tell me if they're below a triple D.
Right, right.
That. And yeah, I can give you context, taste, culture in my picks. But then like, and again, everybody can like what they like. It's like some characters are drawn to be
Mhm.
attractive. There is
Yeah.
nothing wrong with looking at an animated person and saying that's attractive. Why?
Mhm.
Because they're drawn with the intention to be attractive.
Right.
Like, obviously, I know they're not real, but like, if I see a man in real life, I'll be like, you're
Yeah.
attractive. And then I see a 2D
Mhm.
man, I'll be like, you also have the features that I find attractive.
Mhm.
That is how we as humans operate. And I feel like it's just so stupid that it feels like we
Or
get
for me and
shamed.
Aisha, it's a monster and a wolf man, but
I mean, he does like a good tail and, ears on top with a 6-pack or a 10-pack.
Woo!
As far as I go, I haven't gotten to the monster area with y'all yet. I'm gonna dip my toe in slowly. Like, just dip it in.
Just
And
dip
be
it,
like,
yeah.
You just gotta just show me one who's like, is he tall and broad and big?
Go read Kaiju number 8, ma'am.
I was gonna say you should read the Tanuki's Lover. It's a doujin.
Yeah.
It's a 3-part series.
Down.
You can read it on Iridori Comics. I swear this is not like a plug for them, but it's one of my favorites. And it's about a human woman she is very busty. She's hot, who is dating a Tanuki who he like can like shape shift kind of. He can look human, but then when he's in his not human form, he doesn't look like what we think of Tanuki. Like he's big and buff.
This sounds like my brain, and it also sounds like that Miyazaki movie Pompoko, but like Pompoko.
Don't cross the streams. No. No. My line is that. That's my line.
Did I taint someone's childhood memory? I'm sorry.
No, you just ruined all the ones going forward.
Oh well, you're grown. You're fine.
It's one that I think it sounds like it, and it's very sweet. It's the artist is actually a woman, and I think that she does she's very horny for monsters, but all her stories are just very like, I call them women friendly because the women never feel objectified.
Yeah.
Like they feel like this is what they want, like they are genuinely asking for it and not,
Yeah.
It's nice. It feels more realistic. It's just nice. It doesn't feel like, male gazy or whatever. But anyway.
No, I like that.
It's great.
No, but I think
links.
I think you bring up a good point though too, Nisha, is like when it comes to like kind of like saying that you like hentai, especially like with other men in the fandom, and unfortunately a lot of men of color, that's the first thing they go to. Not gonna lie, been accepted by more white men than I have men of color when it comes to this stuff. Do you get the same
shit? Sorry.
Do you no? Well, but I think it's like there is just this assumption of like what hentai is and who it's for, and we're not seen anywhere in that.
Right.
And I'm wondering, do either of y'all get, or I guess specifically Nisha, do you get the same reaction if you talk about something that's like an ecchi, right? Because like ecchi and hentai aren't the same thing. And ecchi is like everything but the sex, you know?
Right.
So like, do you get the same thing when you're like, I love Food Wars, or, like stuff like that?
Food Wars specifically, I'm glad you brought that up, because like I've gotten a mixed bag of it, because I've recommended it to people and I'd be like, it's great, it's a cooking anime. And I didn't think anything about the ecchi stuff because I'm like, it's a cooking show anime, go watch it. And then somebody would just like react back, because I don't think of it as ecchi first. I think of it as cooking show first, then ecchi. But the reactions I've gotten from some people, it's like, oh no, this is great. This is good. Like, this is a great show. But then like some guys, they'll come back and like, that's basically just porn. And I'm like, I want y'all to understand that I won't even say all, there's nothing wrong with consuming porn. As long as you're doing it in an appropriate way that doesn't harm anyone and isn't inflicting pain or, etc. on anyone. But a large number of people consume porn. So even if you look at Food Wars and you're going to call it porn, it's not. But if you are, it's there's nothing wrong with it. It's ecchi. It's not hentai. It's very different. But it's just this frustrating thing where people will just be like, that this is just that. It's just smut. I'm like, and I'm sure you've seen a Playboy magazine. I'm sure you've seen a Playgirl. It goes from men and women, honestly. From reactions I've had where some people is like, you didn't warn me about this. And I'm like, oh, my bad. But we love it. I'm like, dope. Because I recommended it to a friend and his wife. And we did not know what the hell you had us watching. But at first, but we're into it.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. So it's a mixed bag.
I'm going to be honest and say that from my knowledge, my audience tends to be predominantly female identifying, there are some men that follow me and that I do talk. I mean, one of my Euricast co-host is a straight white guy, and but I don't think that any of the guys that do follow me none of them have ever like come at me and been like, oh wow, this is not something that you should be consuming as a Black woman. Like even
Right.
like even the Black men that do follow me, most of them will get on and be like, "Ooh, where'd you get that? Give me the links,"
Mhm.
I think that, but I also think that for the most part, despite the fact that in the beginning, when I say I gave like a wholesome image, it was only because like at the time when I first started Mama Loves Manga, I was more actively reading like kind of, like more wholesome things, I guess. And then I slowly was like, I'm going to introduce more of what I read. And so,
Mhm.
and I did that fairly early on. So people kind of have grown, like that's what they expect from me. Like, I think in my circle, I am known for being thirsty and I'm known for for liking, hentai and smut and all that stuff. So because I have kind of established that, people expect it. So like, when I tweet stuff, I mean, I will make Yona of the Dawn thirsty, and like post things. People are like, "Whoa, you're like," I'm like,
That's
"Yeah."
me with Prince Freya.
But it is thirsty though. Have you seen Hawk with the honey? Girl.
But I got to that,
All I had to say, Hawk with the honey.
and we all know.
We all know it's, oh God. So Yona is thirsty.
It is.
Well, and I think that's the other like access, right? Like I genuinely think when Nisha and I started this podcast, I've been surprised by how many men follow us and interact with us. And it's never shamey or judgy.
Right.
And it is very like they want to hear us thirst about people. They want to hear it's kind of like
they enjoy it.
Yeah. And not in like a weird way. It's like a genuinely like open
Right.
like it's an open like enjoyment and acceptance that I don't think I had ever seen outside of like, okay, so like my Oscar Isaac post, anytime anything Oscar Isaac happens, I swear if I ever get to interview that man, I will have to delete my entire presence from online. There's literally a picture of me photoshopped onto a lollipop. Where he's eating it. But when it comes to all the anime stuff and everything, like it has like when we talk about it on the podcast or like we link it to the podcast, it is extremely welcoming. I think the only thing I've gotten the only like thing I've gotten directly was like, hey, you should probably make an alt account for all that. I'm like, well, no, because like I get it. And it is weird because I have to walk that line because I'm not just a manga person. Like I review film. I'm a film critic. I do work in games, and I do stuff that isn't like, I feel like if I was just anime and manga, I could lean to it a lot more. But it is very much like, how do I ride this line? And like, what can I talk about? How open can I be? And so I've kind of been testing to see what responses as I get more open. And it's going up. Like, more people are enjoying it as I get more open. But I still have to be brand conscious. Like, okay, well, what brands will work with me if I talk about this stuff?
Right.
But then at the same time, like, I have a full-time career outside of this. Like, I think I may just thirst for things.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
That's my main thing.
Like, I don't know. It's weird. And I will say, like, as much as like the comment about like Matt letting me do these things, like, it rubs me the wrong way and it's very weird. It is one of those things, like, we've never had that conversation. Like, it's weird to me that people assume that like there was a conversation where he was like, sure, honey, you can be thirsty. But
We're allowed to thirst.
Like, it's just accepted and understood. And I asked him a while back, like, does it bother you? He's like, why? He's like, we sleep in the same bed, so I don't know why it would bother me if you're thirsty online. Right. Like, it's something that I just don't think people understand at all.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you say that, because like my husband, he never really had Twitter. And then like he recently, like fairly, like a few months ago, he created a Twitter to follow me, because he was just cute, because he was like, I want to support, like he's already supportive. I mean, he buys me all like my tech stuff, but this year he's been like, here like the past 6 months or so, he's been really wanting to like really see what it is that I do. And he was like, I really love your Twitter. He's like, I love just seeing your thirst trap posts and like seeing you like thirst for, like he like enjoys it. I even got him to be on one of my Thirsty Thursday videos, just his hands, because he was like, I don't want my face on there, but like I made him react with me to a hentai, which was hilarious. People loved it. They're like, oh my gosh, we want more from him, have him on again. And so like, I don't know, but we've been together since we were 18. There is no such thing as like him letting me, we know each other like so well that there's nothing that surprises him about me. He's never surprised. Like, he knows I'm hella bi. He knows I'm hella thirsty. So it would be weird for someone to come to me and say like, oh, it's great that your husband lets me. What do you mean lets me? That's weird. But a lot of people live that way. A lot of people do have that dynamic where they have to get permission to be themselves from their husbands or whatever.
And it's funny too, because like my husband's a co-founder of our site. And so like technically he could have had that conversation, like from a brand perspective.
True.
Should you be, you never even did that. It was just like, oh, Kate's on her shit again. Okay. And he has Twitter, so he sees all of it. And that's how he knows when my yaoi shipments are coming.
And I'm like, and I feel like that's just how it should be, of just like in relationships in general, of like whether it's maybe it's hentai, maybe it's whatever, but it's just like, we're all adults here. I can say if I find somebody attractive, it's the difference of like, I'm not in their DMs trying to get at them. And like, especially with like anime and hentai, like you have nothing.
What am I gonna go do? Am I gonna roll up to Sashomaru and be like, yo, let me get at it? Like that's never gonna happen.
It's never gonna happen. But the people who are so insecure, and like it's true, because
I guess I could buy a cardboard cutout. I don't know.
And like hump it or something. Like I could like dry hump a cardboard cutout. Like,
I mean, they got them dolls, I'm sure, somewhere. Someone's probably put together a doll. I don't know. But I just feel like because I'm single, I'm currently single, and my whole thing is like, whoever I end up dating or whatever, I would hope that like I can be as open as y'all are. Because like that is something that I think is very key in relationships. Like, hey, you might look over my shoulder one day as I'm on my tablet reading something. It's like, I don't want your reaction to be like, I don't know, whatever it will be. I mean, like, who wants to walk in on like their spouse watching porn? But like, actually, no. I feel like
I like it, but
thank you. So I'm like, I can retract that because I have to think about it twice. Because I'm like, people can have their boundaries with it, but then it's also just like, depending on like, if I'm in a relationship with somebody, like y'all are in y'all relationships, it's just as simple as like, that's their taste. That's what they like. And I have no control over it, as I should not have any control over it. So it's like, yeah. So it's the same thing. It's like if I walked in a guy I was dating, I'm like, oh, are you reading the porn mag? Cool. Okay. Nothing new. And just like, just go about your day. But I don't know. I feel like it's just weird when people think of it as like it's something that a man or a woman has to allow their significant other to do.
Right.
It's also
especially because
those,
we're all
like,
adults.
and it also just makes me feel bad for like my husband because I'm like, do you think that he's like that? Because it's kind of like, because it's less like something about me because I'm powerful for doing it no matter what. But like, do you think that my husband is like that? Like, it's weird. I will say, like, as a last talking point too, do you all think that there's just a different standard for like porn and animation versus like humans? Because I feel like when we see like the, you know, everybody watches porn slogan, it's kind of like everybody watches porn except hentai. Those are the weird people. Like, I don't like, how do you feel about like the differences between the two and like how they're perceived?
Well, I definitely think there is a stigma for being a person. Like, I mean, even, okay, hentai aside, like people already get made fun of for being attracted to fictional characters. Like that's already like a thing. We're like, ew, you're a weirdo for thinking fictional character. Like, and even my husband has said, like, although like we had fun reacting, you know, to the hentai together, he had even said, he's like, he understands why I like it, but he doesn't, to him, pictures, cartoons, it doesn't do anything for him. He does prefer real people. And I have explained to him, like, first of all, I'm demisexual. So like, I actually, when I look at a person, like a real person, I can objectively say that they are attractive, but I don't get sexual stimulation from looking at people because I have to know them first. Like I have to have like an emotional kind of connection with them to start feeling sexual urges toward them.
Yeah.
Whereas with fictional characters, I don't need that. And I know, and I think my brain just recognizes that this is just like, this isn't real. There is no need for me to have like an emotional connection to them because they are purely just like fictional people were made to look like basically perfect, you know, and it's just fun to, it's kind of like, I'm kind of a voyeur. And so it like gives me the space to like watch people without worrying about consent, without worrying about like, you know, feeling like a creeper because they're not real people. They don't have feelings, you know, there's no complicated stuff to it. So, but people do kind of like have this like negative feelings toward people who like pictures because they're like, ew, you're weird. Like, I don't think it's weird. I do consume human porn every now and then, not nearly as much these days, actually, now that I think about it. I do consume it occasionally, but I'm super picky with it too. Because again, when it's a human being, I'm like, I need like some sort of like connection. And also I think I was telling my husband, like, there's this thing where like humans have we all have imperfections, you know, and when I'm not like, when you're emotionally invested in a person, you overlook a lot of like flaws that they might have, you know. So like if they shave and they have like razor bumps or something, when you are emotionally connected to them, you don't care about that. They're sexy even with their razor bumps, you know. But like, if I'm not emotionally connected to them and I'm watching porn, it kind of is distracting. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to see that. I would much rather look at like a fake character. Perfect. If I'm just trying to get like, you know, some stimulation or whatever, I'd rather look at just an impossibly perfect person than a real person that I don't know and don't care about. I guess that's a long-winded explanation for why I like 2D characters a little more than humans.
That's a really good explanation though. And I had never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no joke, I probably read between 25 to 50 chapters of yaoi like per night, like on like I'm just working through. I already like got through all my Furukiya stuff and I got it and I'm like on to Leshen, like but that like I get to know these characters and they're perfect, and I know that this guy is an asshole starting, but in 99.9% of the stories he's gonna have a moment and it's gonna change. And so like, oh my god, I had not thought about it like that. That's really insightful, honestly.
I'm a weirdo who's like is in my head all the time. And like, but yeah, I just when I realized that I was demisexual, like a lot of things like kind of clicked for me, because I've always been, I say always, but like in 2004, I was 18, you know? And so like that was still kind of a formative time for me. And that was when I first discovered, you know, hentai. And I realized, ooh, I like this, but I previously never felt like sexual feelings toward people, like real people, unless I knew them well. There's a reason why my husband was my first, because I felt like emotionally connected to him, and it didn't matter if he was like perfect or not, you know. But yeah, so it's just there's a comfort in fake characters that I don't necessarily, and you don't have to worry about whether or not you are attractive to them, because it's not about you. You're just watching these characters get plowed, and it's like, oh, that's fun. I like this. There's no anxiety, no insecurity.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about like whether they love you or if they're just like hit it or quit it. Like
honestly, I also feel like we just need to have like a longer discussion too about like problematic things in anime and manga, and why for some freaking reason it doesn't bother me like it does in live action media. Like I don't care. Like Don't Be Cruel is probably one of my favorite series, and I don't care that it was an entirely coercive situation in the first like 4 chapters or 4 volumes. Like I love, and it's a disconnect, and I feel like I'm understanding it more now that you're talking. I'm so thankful you came on this podcast.
Yes. I'm so thankful that y'all invited me.
No, this is great. And I really like what you said, because like, while I don't identify as demisexual, I do feel very similar in that whole thing of like, when I like can totally look at a man or like even a woman and say like they're attractive, and then I can have like urges, but like I would not act on those urges, because like I prefer the emotional connection with said person if I'm going to engage in sex with them. And I can't I've never been able to get past that, and it's like a thing. But like when you think about when I consume like hentai or porn, it's like I don't need that. But like you said, with hentai, it's like I can find a doujinshi with like Kakashi, and I'm like, all right, cool, I can read these 50 pages and I'm good. It gives me what I need. But like I also don't have that connection with real life porn, where it's like, nah, I can't, like, no, not that one. No, I'm like, and it just, I feel picky, but it's just like in the back of my brain, it's like it's just people having sex. I'm like, no, but I don't find him attracting. I don't find her attracting. And then I'm thinking of the depths behind them. Like, does she find him attracting? Because I don't find him attracting. And why is he with her? And
it's distracting.
It's so distracting. And I'm really glad that you brought that up, because you're right. I feel like it does take away the pressures of it, and it makes it easier to consume it when you're not so focused on like, oh, but that person doesn't have what I like, and they did this and that. When you can just be like, here are characters that I like, see, or like, here's an imperfect human who's like got a 10-pack of abs and is an 8-foot tall, or you monster man.
Also, so I'm not gonna lie. So like if there's a porn clip or a hentai clip, no sound, like everything is just happening. Okay, cool. My brain can check out. Ooh, look at that.
Yes.
But if there's any sound, I feel like Castiel in Supernatural, where he's like, why is the pizza man coming? Why is he walking inside? Does she like being spanked? And like, I don't know why my brain goes there. And smut and yaoi, and all that just lets me get my answers.
Yeah.
But you
I
know
get
what?
the full
I'm glad you said sounds, because that is another one. Because like sometimes the sounds be hit or miss. Like and that's why I think I
Not
prefer
wrong.
reading.
Yes.
That's why I prefer reading, because I'm like, no, I cannot hear her make that sound, because I don't like it. I don't.
Right. Like
it
when they're
just, like,
crying.
Oh my God, no.
Oh, but I will say, like, I am really thankful that, like, overall, I feel like I'm finding more women like me. And I'm even more thankful that I'm finding more women of color like me, because it is super, like, honestly, one of, like, the first reasons that I started being more sex positive, like, online, was because I started, like, listening to Danny Fernandez's podcast, and, like, following her. She does work with Funimation. She likes anime. She like all this stuff. And she is Latina. She's Mexican American specifically. And she openly talks about sex and being sexy and embracing these things. And that was the first time I had really seen somebody who looked like me, came like, she's like originally from Texas, like my background, doing those things. And I was like, oh shit, it's okay. And so now I'm hoping with Did You Have To, I'm hoping with people that follow me, follow Nisha, and follow you, Aisha, sorry. Aisha. I have a friend named Aisha, like it's Arabic. So
yes, it is actually an Arabic name, and I have been asked by Arabic people so many times, like, and they have insisted. And I'm like,
gosh.
I promise. They're like, no. Somewhere. I'm like, no, my family just liked that name. I promise.
I think it is a beautiful name, and I apologize for saying it wrong.
It's okay.
But yeah, like, honestly, like, I feel like there are just more women finding their power and liking these things and liking hentai and being open about it. And it's really good. And it's honestly, like, I mean, I already said it, like, when we started this podcast, like, finding your Twitter, Aisha, like, that was a lot for me. I was like, oh my God, yes, there's somebody out there doing this. And it and I think that it means, for me, it means more when it comes from a woman of color, because like with just the way society is, we're not going to be protected most of the time. We're going to get it the worst. Like, and it's just really important to see that positivity, or that sex positivity and that kind of stuff. So,
well, you know, and to be honest, one thing I will say that I have noticed, and I won't name names, but like the women in this like in this space, the manga anime space, who talk about hentai or just like even ecchi or just like anything sexual within that space, the ones that seem to be more popular have been either white or Asian, which Asian I understand, because it, you know, hentai anime, it's, you know, it's Japanese, so I understand that. But yeah, like it's been a lot of, like, I feel like white girls and Asian girls have a tendency to get a little bit more of a pass, because in general they are more desired by the male population. Like, they're seen as more of like a beauty standard or whatever, and so people are like, yeah, wow, we really like this, like these, you know, hot girls, like whatever. Whereas I do feel like women of color, typically we are not seen as you know, the ideal, and we're already hypersexualized anyway. So people, it's almost like people will be like, ugh, like just fast black girls do, you know, just being fast, you know. And so there is I personally haven't had anyone come for me, but I also do realize that I fit certain beauty standards that make people want to be more accepting towards me. Like, when it comes to body types, I've always had what people typically describe as the white girl body. And so when I hear like black women talking about, oh, like the white girls, they want our curves, and I'm like, your curves, because I didn't get none. So I can kind of I do feel like there's a lot of things that I have that kind of have allowed me to kind of come into that space. But what I want to see is more, you know, women of color, especially women of color who are not skinny as rails and, and like medium brown, or in some cases, some people have accused me of being light skinned, which I rebuke. Don't look at me like, okay, I was
no.
Oh, I mean, wait, and like how?
I really like that because I'm like, where? Because like I've also, people have like tried to crap on me too and be like, oh, you're a red bone because my nose be red sometimes. And I'm like,
I'm brown, thanks. Don't try to take that from me.
But you're right, there'd be people like that. So
yeah,
that's
and it's just like, I want to see more people, like just more, like a wider range of women of color feeling like they can be more sex positive and open, and not feeling like, and not having to deal with respectability politics.
Yes.
Because anytime Black and brown women decide to, I guess, kind of like own their sexuality, oh, well, that just doesn't look good for Black women or Latino women, like it just, we're already stereotyped as this. And so you need to be chased and all the stuff. And no, we don't have to do that. We don't have to ignore our sexuality just because we've been over sexualized in general. Like that has nothing to do with us as individuals.
Yeah.
And it's not fair.
You're right.
So I say all that to say, do what you want, read what you want, talk about sex if you want, if you're an adult. Like all of this if you're an adult. Like but yeah.
I like that because, and I guess like, just to like add on to what y'all said, it definitely is that like Thirst Aid Kit for me was a big part of like, I don't want to say sexual awakening because I feel like I've always been a very physical person and enjoying all of that stuff, but it's the knowing that we're allowed to embrace our sexuality and not feel shame and not feel like we have to hide it, like it's something that we have to tuck under a bed or like shut down deep down and not acknowledge. Because you're right, I feel like as Black and brown women, people already hypersexualize us as young girls, like from a young age. Like you said, like we're called fast if we wear something, like we're called fast if we wear the same shorts that the girls in high school who are white wore the same shorts. I'm like, I just have a different shape, or I just like developed early, but I'm deemed as inappropriate and fast, and therefore I have to be ashamed of my body. But then now as we get older, you're right, it's like I do feel like a lot of women who are like celebrated for being sexually positive, I've seen, and then when we see in this, and we're saying specifically in the space and outside of the space, I will say it's like it's the white and Asian women too, and it's like no shade to them, but it's more so the people who are accepting and celebrating them over us. And it's like me and Kate started this podcast because we realized Black and brown women don't have a space to have these conversations and to have this safety and to be able to talk about these things in a very safe space where we can explore and have conversations like this, because it's needed. And it's great that you came on and you said all this stuff, because I'm like, yes, this reaffirms so much.
Yes, y'all are doing great things.
Oh, thank you. It's just, and I like you said, I hope that listeners, I hope any of y'all who listen to this podcast, this episode, that y'all really enjoyed it. And maybe it'll hopefully inspire you to, check out hentai, to maybe remove some of the stigmas you might have had before you listen to this episode. And I think that's what we do here. Did You Have To? We hope that, we can encourage other people. So, because like, I feel like by me and Kate starting this podcast and us creating this space, it's really helped me, and it's helped me find other women who are like supportive in that way and have that more sexual positivity. And it's not like, to your point, like shout out to the Clovers. It's like a group chat of girls who love Black Clovers, and with the Black Clovers, I love them. So if any of y'all listening, I love y'all. But like, when I tell you our FaceTimes of like 20 plus people, and it's just be like, hey, did y'all read this manga? And then like they talk about hentai, or like we'll just talk about stuff with each other, and just like, or just like talking about anime in general. So like not hentai, but like anime in general. It's like, this is so nice. And it's not toxic. And it's just, you're able to talk about it. And we all like look different, like sizes, shades, whatever. And it's just so positive. And I want to see more of that.
Same. Absolutely 100% same. I love that y'all are here. I love what y'all are doing. And I don't know, I just want to see more of it. Like, period. I love women. Like, I have a soft spot for women. Always have, not just because I'm bi, but because just in general, I love women. Like, I think that we are amazing creatures. Like, we have, like, literally humans wouldn't exist without us. So
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I guess we kind of need men as well, but who?
They look pretty. And they have a thing.
I do like the beat sometimes, but
I'm pretty sure we could have figured out how to exist without them and like make a utopia.
oh yeah,
Maybe.
I
But
figured it out.
nah, I love this. Y'all good.
Right? I mean, sadly, same.
Right.
I'm staring at my Yowie like,
Yeah,
That's what I'm
same.
saying. Like,
Yeah.
without men, I don't get Brawly. And like, that's my logic. Like, without men, I don't get Vegeta or Brawly or like, I'm just like listing them
Like,
all
well,
off. I'm like,
it's like maybe some of them can stay. Some of them can stay.
right.
well, I think this was a phenomenal episode, and I'm really thankful that we got to have you on, Aisha. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you, your work, and how they can keep up with you?
So you can find me pretty much everywhere on the internet, at Mama Loves Manga, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Okay, that's not everywhere. That's Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I do have a website, mamalovesmanga.com. I guess also, like, I have done some like work for Viz. So I guess if you want to go to their page and like see some stuff that I've done there and like give it like, so they keep me there, you know. But yeah, mostly Mama Loves Manga. Just, you can type it up and stuff will pop up. Yeah. Oh, and the Yaoi Shelf and the Yuri Cast. I do have them listed in my Twitter bio, but yeah, follow the Yaoi Shelf and the Yuri Cast because I talk about gay stuff on both of those podcasts. I think that's it. I think that's all I do.
Nice.
Yes.
Awesome. And if you're listening to this and you want to join our conversation, head on over to Twitter at DYHT_pod. And if you want to hear more of us, head over to patreon.com/butwhytho, BUTWHYTHO, where you can get access to Manga Trash, where me and Nisha talk about a lot of the titles that we just talked about in detail. So you can get all of that on Patreon. And you can find me at Omemithrandir on Twitter, where I kind of talk about Yaoi all the time, and Taemin when he drops a new video, and apparently Kai, because he's going to be dropping like 5 more videos over the course of the rest of the month, which I am so excited for. My baby has his first solo. That's K-pop, if you don't know. Yeah, Nisha.
Nice. And y'all can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Nisha Plays. Yeah, see all my cosplay. I have a new one coming up soon where I'm going to do Maki from Fire Force, or maybe I'll change my mind and I'll do something else with that green wig that I still have. I don't know. And other things. Like, I feel like now I am free. Nisha's a free elf because I finished my finals. So I'm about to tweet all of the smut things, more One Piece tweets coming. I'm just, I haven't had time.
Oh yeah,
but I'm back.
What we do need our One Piece update. What episode are you on now?
906.
906, and you have
Do you have it pulled up?
28 more days. We had 8 more days. Oh, no, not 28. 27 more. What is 31 minus 12?
We're asking the wrong.
19.
19
days.
You got 19 days. My husband's a
19 days
scientist. I am not.
19 days to watch less than 50 episodes, Kate. I'm gonna win this bet.
Your ass gonna get another Zorro statue, isn't it?
Yes, I am. I proved, and better yet, I proved you wrong. I proved everybody wrong. I
You
proved
proved your Doyle Travis wrong.
That is I'm about to like blast him. I'm like, you said I couldn't do it.
Hey.
I did it. But anyways, yeah, y'all can find me there. I'm like, oh, and I'm just loving it so much. We have to do a One Piece episode, so I have to tell Kate that she can't finish it so that she can do it. You can literally catch up in the manga in 1 week. You just said you read 50 chapters a night.
Because I'm watching hot men have sex and emotional and
I'll
work
send
through
you
their
some
emotional
Sanji
trauma.
and Zoro. I'll send you some Sanji and Zoro doujinshi.
But that means that I'm not reading the manga, ma'am. You don't
But that will
understand.
inspire you to read the manga.
Will it though, or will I just start reading more doujin?
If I can just get you to start reading some form of One Piece, I think it will trickle down effect that they talk about in the economics class.
Man, Reagan was wrong, and we all know that.
Anyways,
Close out the show, Nisha.
I know. All right, I'll take us out. Well, you guys go follow Mama Loves Manga. You should if you haven't already, aka Aisha. Will you be more open to exploring hentai after this episode if you haven't already? And will I ever get Kate to watch One Piece? Find out next time on Did You Have To? Bye.
Did You Have To is co-produced by Kate Sanchez and Lanisha Campbell. Our intro is done by Dr. Emery Stephen Daniel. And our outro and intro music is by Benjamin Tissot, aka Ben Sound.